Has faced many lawsuits in these first 105 plus days, all about whether he is exceeding his powers. In court, we are now seeing how this is going, and I've been following this with you. We're all kind of going through it together. Some of it's reminiscent of the first term and other Trump issues we've all lived through as a country. Other parts are evolving a little differently because Donald Trump now is verbally more brazen than he was, say, in the first year of the first term, and that's hurting him in court. In these arguments over the mistaken deportations, a federal judge literally citing President Trump's own statement. And like everyone else, of course, he has a right to silence. He could stay out of it. Sometimes he does because he'll defer and say, hey, check with the agency of the DOJ. But when he gets in these TV interviews and wants to sound a certain way, now that stuff, his words, are hurting him. For example, the Supreme Court asked to facilitate, it's an order, facilitate the return of this individual. Trump admitted out loud in the TV interview he could do that. He could pick up the phone and arrange for the detainee's release.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
Good question, and clearly it got to him. We've seen sometimes this president and some other politicians as well don't like to admit in questions that, for example, they don't have a power. But that was the DOJ's partial defense, that somehow they can't get the guy back. He's over there. Then the president says, I could do it. Well, if you can do it and the Supreme Court said do it, you're in a tougher spot. That's me just kind of saying it in plain English. Here's what happened in court. The judge pressing Trump's DOJ lawyer. Was the president telling the truth when he said he could pick up the phone and have Mr. Abrego Garcia released or not? The DOJ struggling to answer, and the judge then cited a video that you may have come across of the DHS secretary where she was bragging about this foreign prison where the Trump administration has admitted this particular detainee shouldn't even have been sent, but bragging that it's actually part of the Trump American toolkit.
But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
All right. It's pretty straightforward. But that's boomeranging in court, where the judge asked, quote, is she wrong about that? DOJ's lawyer saying, well, sometimes public statements lack the nuance of any given situation. The judge pressing, is that another way of saying these statements, this time about a Trump official, quote, just aren't true? DOJ replies, no, Your Honor, I'm not saying that at all. Now, there's a pattern here where Trump's own words and some of the more kind of braggadocious claims of some of his officials undercut the actual government claims about what they're doing and why they're doing it. A judge citing this speech when handing Trump a loss in that bid to abuse federal power with executive orders to go after law firms that have represented people that Trump simply disagrees with.
Have you noticed that lots of law firms have been signing up with Trump? $100 million, another $100 million for damages that they've done. But they give you $100 million and then they announce that, but we have done nothing wrong. And I agree, they've done nothing wrong.
Donald Trump entered politics as the most litigious person to ever run for president. He knows what he's doing there. He's referring to what is sometimes called a no-fault settlement, where there is money exchange, but people then get to say, well, nobody did anything wrong. He is being sarcastic or facetious and suggesting they did do something wrong. But the larger effort, which, again, he's having trouble in the long term defending in court, is whether the White House can pick its enemies and punish law firms and go after lawyers they don't like. Because for all the lawyer jokes and all the talk about lawyers, this system, the Western canon system, U.S., U.K., these countries, we rely on lawyers to defend people's rights, including the people who are most attacked and marginalized by the more powerful government, which is why you can go all the way back to Shakespeare, which this judge did in this very ruling, noting that it was a cringeworthy twist on that phrase, quote, let's kill all the lawyers, saying the president takes the approach of let's kill the lawyers I don't like. What do you think about these judges hitting the point where they are saying what anyone would say in plain English, which is is the president flouting the law and bragging about it, or is he lying on the evidence in the deportation case? It has to be one of the two.
The political strategy pursued by the Trump administration has focused upon its willingness to break boundaries that other administrations have respected. And because of that, obviously, politicians like Mr. Trump, like Ms. Noem, tout the fact that they are doing things that are across the edge of the law. And what we're seeing in the decisions that you went through just now is that that strategy comes back to haunt them when they have to defend those matters in court. That doesn't mean they're going to lose these cases eventually, but it does make it much more difficult for the government lawyer to stand up with a straight face and make what, in other cases, might be a winning argument.
And do you see a kind of declining patience here? Because judges do say in both parties, politicians are known to speak more broadly, more vaguely, sometimes in misleading ways that will not be held to the letter of the law in every case, an old campaign vow, for example. And yet here they seem to be taking quite seriously what he's saying as undercutting the DOJ's defense.
I think we see judges like Judge Boasberg in the D.C. District Court palpably, visibly running out of patience. But I would be really cautious before assuming that that will happen at higher levels of the judiciary structure, in particular at the Supreme Court level. And I just remember, or I just recall to people's attention what happened in the first Trump administration around the Muslim ban. So one of the first measures that President Trump promulgated in his first term was a bar on people coming from a number of Muslim-majority countries. During his campaign, during his presidency, he repeatedly justified this measure on explicitly racist, explicitly Islamophobic, anti a particular religion turns of phrase. Now, when the Supreme Court upheld a version of the ban, it recognized, it quoted those words and said, in a passage that baffles not just legal scholars, but ordinary readers, yeah, that was the president speaking in his personal campaigning capacity, but we're dealing with the official presidency here.